Hello there, friend, and welcome to another episode of Faithful She Speaks. I'm your host, Micah Klug, and I am so happy you're here. Let's dive into today's episode. I absolutely love the talk that we were able to study, and I will link to it in the show notes so that way you can dive into it. But it was by Barbara Smith, who was a former General Relief Society president, and she gave a devotional talk at BYU in February of 1978. And in it, she talks about what is the purpose of a woman and a woman's central role. And you could ask a variety of people what the purpose of a woman is, what she's meant to do, what she's meant to become, her role, not only for herself individually, but also within the family unit and in society at large. And you can get a variety of different answers. Depending on the people that you ask, their own life experiences, and maybe even you yourself, you have your own definition and your own idea of the purpose of a woman. I remember being a small child and sitting in our little primary class and thinking, I just want to be a mom when I grow up. That's all I want to be. And I would look at the little boys in primary and I would see one of them whack another kid upside the head and the other fall down and another one run around in circles backwards thinking, maybe not with them, but just silly little things like that. And depending on who you ask and their cultural beliefs or even their own background experience with women in their lives, what is the purpose of a woman? What is she meant to do? And it's so humbling to see the insights. And something that Barbara Smith spoke on is she spoke about roots and she spoke about wings. Now, it's not gardening and it's not bird watching by any means, but she talked about how a woman's role, being an individual child of God, she is the most important person as the individual because intelligence, we existed with our Heavenly Father, with our Heavenly Parents before we were born on this earth. We lived there, we grew, we developed, we cultivated our likes, our interests, our talents. We did everything we could to create in the span that allowed us to as intelligences, knowing that we lived with our Father in heaven and with our Mother in heaven. They had glorified, perfected bodies, and they do. And that wasn't a trait that we had. And so we were, as intelligences, we were very limited to our capabilities of creating. And so Barbara Smith talks about roots that we need as a woman and wings that we receive through our divine nature. And she relates this talk to a monument, and you'll have to send me a DM on Instagram. I'm at Home Faith Family if you've ever been to Nauvoo, and if the woman's monument is still up. I would love to know if it is. But at the time, like I said, the talk was in 1978. At the time, the monument was up, and at the very center of this woman's monument was a statue of just a woman, just her individually, existing with God with unlimited potential for growth, for achievements, for her own capabilities. And the roots come through a woman's faith in Jesus Christ. Because when a woman understands her divine nature, when she understands where she came from and whose she is, the price that has been paid for her by a loving older brother through Jesus Christ, the wings, faith in herself, learning how to master ourselves and discipline our own talents, and being able to cultivate faith in ourselves, not in the sense of faith like we're amazing and we can do anything we put our minds to and we're going to depend upon ourselves, but faith in ourselves through Christ to be able to achieve an eternal potential of what is coming, not necessarily what will be or could be, but what can come as we stay close to the Lord. And so this monument starts off with the circle as the woman herself. And it's important to note that when we give ourselves our own time, when we give ourselves our own opportunities to enrich our lives, to learn something new, to bring a little bit of happiness and joy into our lives, to read that book that's been waiting for us on our bookshelf for the last 6 months, to take a class to take a class on a skill or a new art form that we've always wanted to learn, to study a new language. These skills, this knowledge, this experience isn't necessarily for our own selfish greed, but it goes into the second circle of a woman's role, and that is compassionate service. That is the betterment of our fellow man. Because when we understand our own capabilities and our own divine potential, and when we truly love ourselves in the way that God sees us, then we will want to elevate our fellow man in that same way. We're going to want to do everything we can to help them see themselves as a child of God with unlimited potential and possibility. And what a remarkable thing that is, to be able to do that, to be a creator with God, not in the sense of just bearing and nurturing children, but in the sense of creating emotions, feelings, experiences, knowledge, helping, elevating our fellow man to a higher place, just as we ourselves want to obtain. But Sister Smith explained and showed in the second ring, it's a focus on others. There's cultivating talents, gaining knowledge, praying, finding wisdom, and then compassionate service. Jesus Christ himself tells us to study out of the best books, to seek learning by study and by faith. It's a commandment that we learn as much as we can, not just on a secular level, but also on a spiritual level, not just studying out of a biology book, but anything that you have an interest in learning that you know will not only enrich your own life, but where you can then go and turn and bless other lives as well. And that can be a variety of interests for a variety of people. It's just a matter of what brings you to life, what interests you. What is one thing that if you could learn today that would just make you giddier than a 5-year-old on Christmas morning? What would you want to learn? What would you want to do? No limitations, no price cap, no blocks stopping you. What would you want to learn? What would you want to be able to do? And is that something that you can do for yourself right now? Because as a child of God, you have unlimited potential. You can do those things. You have that opportunity and almost that duty to not only learn, to study, to grow, but also so you can then bless others' lives with that. I remember living in Utah for a period of time, and my husband and I just had our third son. He was a brand new newborn, and a couple of women came over to the house to congratulate us, but one woman in particular brought over a bunch of warm jars of potato soup, and she had been canning them, she had been warming them, and she brought them over. And I remember thinking how wonderful that was, because, well, for one, being a new mom, you really just don't want to cook anything, but more so, she used her culinary skills that she learned to make one of the best potato soup recipes I've ever had, and have yet had another one to compare. But more than that, there was another woman in that same area that I had the privilege of meeting, and her talent and skill wasn't necessarily one that you could sign up for on a class, and you couldn't have someone necessarily teach it to you. It was more of just a way of her life and her living. but she had a beautiful gift of being a grandma to my little ones. And if you ever have the privilege of meeting my children, they are a joy, they are a delight, they are a circus, whether or not I know to sell tickets to so people can come in and be entertained, or to pop popcorn for, because it is quite loud and noisy and the busiest group of kids that you'll ever see. And she had a beautiful gift of patience that she learned through mothering her own children, that she was able to share with my own little ones. And I remember going and visiting her, and I never felt guilt for bringing my kids along. My husband worked really weird hours at the time, and so there was just no possibility for me to find childcare to go and minister, but she more than welcomed and was more than gracious in allowing these children into her home. And she wanted them in, and she loved them, and she spoke with them one-on-one in a way that they learned to love her and to respect her, and they felt valued, heard, and seen. And when we're able to cultivate those talents and skills, where even children who you can say are the greatest and most noble challenge on this earth, where they feel loved, heard, and seen, is one of the most beautiful creating moments a woman can have. Now, I know not every woman is going to have the opportunity to bear children, but as a woman, to be able to create nurturing relationships with the children in our lives, whether that's nieces, nephews, community members, there are children all around us in this world. And what a beautiful opportunity and gift it is that we can extend that to them. Just a simple hello, asking them how they're doing, finding out what shows they like to watch, what books they're currently reading right now, what they love about that. It's not so much a matter of getting the child to talk and learning more about them. It's more of a matter of giving them a chance to feel heard and to feel seen. Sometimes some of the things that we create in this life aren't necessarily seen with eyes, but the greatest works that you can create will be the change done in the hearts of others. Just as much as you have unlimited potential as for growth and achievement as a child of God, so do the people that are around you, and so do those that you come in contact with every day. I think too often one of the battles that we face in this generation and in this dispensation is the battle of distraction. And I see it too often, and it's a little discouraging. People, especially young moms, are burnt out, they're tired, they're exhausted, and rightly so. You have a bunch of little ones that are in demand 24/7. You have household duties, you have the child care, some are balancing work and children, some are homeschooling, some are involved in clubs and community events and activities. And it's easy to get lost in the to-dos of life, where we can get pulled by the vice of distraction, whether it's distraction away from kids through events, or if it's the distraction of our own tablets, phones, and electronics that get us scrolling and kind of shuts down our mind, if you will, for that brief period of time. One thing that I would encourage you to do, that I've actually seen makes a huge difference in my own day, is to figure out and find a way how you can create through the mundane things of life. So, for example, one of the things in my own home, one of the mundane tasks is laundry. 5 kids, they go through a lot of laundry. And my mundane task would look like I load it in, I unload it, I keep going. I kind of curse under my breath about how one child could wear 7 pairs of socks and where that 8th pair was or is, or if it got lost in the dryer and it's going to spit out as a Tupperware in my kitchen one day. And that went on for a little while, and there just wasn't joy in my daily life. And when you realize that the creation part, it's not coming to give other people experience, it's coming to you to give you experience so you can glorify God. But when that realization happens, the creating part for laundry went from mundane, dull and work to inviting my children to participate. We ended up creating little games, boys versus girls, to see who can run their clothes to their bedrooms. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I know kids can be really temperamental. Sometimes they love games, sometimes they don't. But there were other ways to do as well, and part of it was memorizing a scripture, listening to a podcast, studying and listening to an audiobook. I tried to do what I could to find pockets of opportunities to learn, to listen, and to do something new that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And I found when I gave myself something to look forward to, for example, this audiobook is just with laundry, or this, I guess, at least for 5 kids, laundry was a lot. So it gave me something to really look forward to. But, this audiobook is just for housework. So whether it's laundry or dishes or sweeping or mopping or cleaning the bathroom or organizing your pantry, whatever it might be, when you give a new and exciting thing for yourself to do when you're doing those mundane tasks, you're able to create not only a beautiful home for yourself, but you're also able to cultivate and continue to create your own beautiful soul. So with that being said, the purpose of a woman is to create. She's in partnership with God to create and cultivate in her own life. And by creating and cultivating and giving her an opportunity and a chance to develop and to enrich herself in partnership with God, she's able to then fulfill the biggest and most glorious privilege of her divine nature in bearing and nurturing children. And truly, if God's work and his purpose is to bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man, then wouldn't a woman's role be in partnership with that to create and cultivate the divine nature and destiny of her children and of her fellow man as well? One of the things, to wrap up, one of the things that Sister Smith shared in her talk was a letter that she got from a friend, and this one hit home, and it's going to go in my eternal favorite notebook of quotes. But she says in her friend's letter, quote, "The bearing and nurturing of children in a home filled with love and with the Spirit of the Lord is a great and glorious privilege of women. As women, we can ignore that calling by seeking personal pleasure or power to the exclusion of home building and motherhood. We can defile that calling by misusing those sacred powers of procreation. We can abort that calling by abandoning the responsibility of mothering to others. We can belittle that calling by feeling shame before the world or begetting life. We can misunderstand that calling by allowing devotion to children to exclude the development of the whole woman. We can diminish that calling by failing strenuously to engage our time and to recognize our opportunities as mothers. We can obscure that calling by becoming independent of the home and its responsibilities. We can subordinate that calling by yielding to the pressures to postpone childbearing in favor of that which could wait for later time or for eternity. We can cripple that calling by failing to prepare well for marriage and motherhood, failing to build the confidence and faith to wait, even throughout time, for a worthy companion, or failing actively and continually to build a strong marriage." So, friend, I promise that when you value yourself, when you value your knowledge, your talents, your skills, and your time, and when you value yourself, most importantly, to be about your Father in heaven's business, just as Christ is about his Father's business, our Father's business, when you value yourself like that, then when you love your fellow man so much that you will help them do the same. And that, my friend, is the beautiful cycle of the purpose of a woman. All right, send me a message on Instagram at Home Faith Family, or send me an email at podcast@homefaithfamily. Let me know your thoughts on this talk. I would love to hear from you, and I will talk to you again next week. See you then, friend.